I bought it 10,000, and when I put it won 30,000, and then started gambling, play a little pool, and then play a little poker, and then I got it up to millions.
The amount of money that you've said you've lost gambling, you wrote you've lost $55 million gambling over the years.
Stupidity, but it is. I mean,
John Daly stood on top of the golf world, 2 major championships, millions in earnings, and then he admitted something that shocked everyone. He gambled away $57 million, not over decades, in bursts, in sessions, in ways that made his career earnings look like pocket change. Golf gives you everything: fame, money, glory, but it can take it back faster than you ever imagined. These 5 stories prove that being great at golf means nothing when the money runs out. For some of these legends, it happened almost overnight. Professional golfers are not like other athletes. They do not get guaranteed contracts. They do not have safety nets. They do not earn a paycheck when they miss the cut. Every single dollar they make is tied directly to how well they play that week. One bad swing, one injury, one mental block, and the income disappears completely. This is not about poor people trying to make it. This is about champions who had it all and watched it vanish. John Daly is the perfect example. He won the PGA Championship in 1991. He won the Open Championship in 1995. He was a global icon, the everyman golfer, the guy who drank beer and smoked cigarettes and still beat the best players in the world. But behind the scenes, Daly had a problem that was eating him alive. He has openly admitted that he lost between $55 and $57 million gambling. That is not a net worth estimate. That is actual cash. Gone. Daly himself said he thought it was maybe 20 or 25 million. But when he finally looked at the numbers, he realized it was more than double that. One specific story captures just how fast this money disappeared. After a tournament, Daly sat down at a casino and lost $1.65 million in 5 hours. 5 hours. That is more than most PGA Tour winners take home in an entire season. And he lost it between lunch and dinner. Daly earned about $10 million in his entire career from tournament winnings. That means he gambled away nearly 6 times what he made on the course. How does someone survive that? Daly survived because of his personality. People loved him. Sponsors still wanted him. He could show up to events and get paid just for being John Daly. But make no mistake, without that celebrity factor, he would have been completely broke multiple times over. His story is not about a slow decline. It is about instant liquidity collapse. Money in, money out, faster than anyone could track. If you think that is wild, make sure you subscribe and drop a comment below about which golfer shocked you the most, because the next guy makes Daly look cautious. Archie Karras was not a professional golfer, but his story is tied to the golf world in ways most people do not realize. Karras was a pool player and a poker legend, and he is famous for something called the run. In 1992, Karras arrived in Las Vegas with $50. 50. Within 3 years, he turned that into $40 million. He did it by playing high-stakes poker and pool against some of the richest gamblers in the world. People in the Las Vegas country clubs. People who also bet on golf. People who moved in the same circles as professional golfers. Karras became a legend, but his fall was even faster than his rise. In 1995, Karras lost the entire $40 million. All of it. In weeks. He lost 11 million playing craps. Then he lost the rest playing baccarat. Just like that. From 40 million to zero. Karras did not have endorsements. He did not have a golf swing to fall back on. He was just a gambler. And when the house took everything, he had nothing left. His story is repeated in every golf clubhouse as a warning. It does not matter how good you are. It does not matter how hot your streak is. The house always wins eventually. And if you are not careful, you will lose everything in an afternoon. Karras went from millionaire to broke in a matter of days. That is the definition of instant financial ruin. His connection to the golf world makes him a cautionary tale for every player who thinks they can beat the odds. But gambling is not the only way to lose everything in golf. Sometimes the problem is not what you do with the money. It is that you stop being able to make it at all. Ian Baker Finch knows this better than almost anyone. In 1991, Baker Finch won the Open Championship at Royal Birkdale. He shot a final round of 66. He was a major champion. He was a star. He was set for life. 4 years later, his career was over. Not because of injury, not because of age, because his brain stopped letting him play golf. Baker Finch developed what golfers call the yips, a mental block so severe that he could not hit a fairway without fear. He described it as seeing a shot he did not like every single time he stepped up to the ball. He would see the out-of-bounds stakes and panic. His confidence evaporated. And in golf, confidence is everything. The financial consequences were immediate. Baker Finch missed 15 cuts in a row. In golf, if you do not make the cut, You do not get paid. $0. His tournament income dropped to nothing. Then came the most humiliating moment of his career. At the 1997 Open Championship at Royal Troon, Baker Finch shot a 92 in the first round. That is the kind of score a weekend hacker shoots, not a former Open champion. He was so overwhelmed with shame that he withdrew from the tournament. He ripped up his scorecard, and he essentially retired on the spot. For a period in the mid-1990s, Ian Baker Finch was a major champion who could not earn a single dollar from the sport he once dominated. He eventually found success as a broadcaster. His net worth recovered, but for a window of time, his golfing income was completely gone, instantly. That is the terrifying reality of this sport. When the swing goes, the money follows. David Duval faced a similar nightmare, but his collapse had even more layers. In 1999, Duval was the #1 golfer in the world. He knocked Tiger Woods off the top spot. In 2001, he won the Open Championship. He was one of the highest paid athletes in golf. Then everything fell apart. Duval developed back injuries. He struggled with vertigo. His form disappeared. By 2003, he was barely making cuts. But unlike Baker Finch, Duval had another problem. He had major financial problems at home. Reports came out that the real estate collapse of the late 2000s hit Duval especially hard. His property investments lost massive value. He admitted publicly that he had the weight of financial stress on him while trying to fix his game. His wife was dealing with the bank and the house, and Duval was on the range trying to find his swing. It created a toxic loop. The financial pressure made it harder to play well, and playing poorly made the financial pressure worse. Duval never filed for bankruptcy, but he went from earning millions annually to earning almost nothing for years. The destruction of his potential wealth was staggering, and the speed at which it happened was brutal. These modern golfers had one advantage, though. They had name recognition. They had the option to pivot into commentary or endorsements. Golfers from earlier eras did not have that luxury. If you lost your game in the 1930s or 40s, you lost everything, and sometimes you died with nothing. That brings us to Ben Hogan. Hogan is remembered as one of the greatest golfers of all time, but most people do not know how close he came to never making it at all. In his early years, Hogan was broke. Not struggling, broke. He and his wife Valerie traveled the tour in a car that was barely functional. They skipped meals to save money for entry fees and gas. Hogan went broke multiple times and had to leave the tour to work as a club pro, just to save enough money to try again. There was no sponsorship money, no safety net. If you did not win, you did not eat. The image of Hogan and his beat-up car driving from event to event is not just a story. It was his reality. He was playing for survival. Every missed cut meant going hungry. Every bad round meant possibly giving up on golf forever. That desperation forged his legendary work ethic. He practiced obsessively because he knew that failure meant poverty. Later in life, Hogan faced a different kind of financial struggle. He founded the Ben Hogan Golf Company in 1953, but Hogan refused to compromise on quality for mass market appeal. The company struggled with profitability. It went through multiple ownerships, and it eventually shut down in 2022. Hogan himself did not die broke, but his business legacy was repeatedly insolvent. The man who survived extreme poverty in his youth could not make his own company profitable. It is a strange irony, and it shows that even the greatest golfer in the world is not immune to financial failure. If Hogan represents survival, then Cyril Walker represents total collapse. Walker won the US Open in 1924. He beat Bobby Jones at Oakland Hills. That should have set him up for life. Instead, it was the beginning of a slow nightmare. Walker struggled with alcoholism. He was also stubborn and refused to play at the pace the tour required. In 1929, he was disqualified from the Los Angeles Open for slow play. Police forcibly removed him from the course. That incident destroyed his reputation. He could not get work on the tour. He could not secure jobs as a club pro. His income disappeared. By 1930, bad real estate investments left him penniless. He drifted into obscurity. He worked occasionally as a caddy in Florida. A US Open champion reduced to carrying bags for other golfers. The final chapter of his life is heartbreaking. In 1948, Walker was homeless. He sought shelter from a rainstorm in a jail cell in Hackensack, New Jersey. The next morning, he was found dead. Pleural pneumonia. He was 55 years old. He was buried in a potter's field, an unmarked grave for a major champion. The contrast is almost unimaginable. He held the US Open trophy, and he died anonymously in a prison cell. That is the ultimate example of going broke in golf. Total, complete, irreversible. Ralph Goldall faced a different kind of financial disaster. Goldall was dominant in his era. He won 2 US Opens in 1937 and 1938. He won the Masters in 1939, but his career is marked by bizarre exits that were entirely about money. In 1935, just 2 years after nearly winning the US Open, Goldall quit professional golf. He did not retire to a mansion. He quit to become a used car salesman in Dallas. Why? Because he could not afford to stay on tour. He was so broke that he could not pay the $25 dues required to maintain his PGA membership. $25. That is how thin the margins were. Think about that. A player who nearly won the US Open could not scrape together the cost of a nice dinner to keep his professional status. The tour in that era was not just competitive, it was economically brutal. Travel costs ate up most of the prize money. There were no appearance fees, no guaranteed income. If you did not finish in the top 5, you might actually lose money on the week. Guldahl was living proof that talent meant nothing without cash flow. Guldahl eventually returned to the tour. Friends gave him a small stake to get back on his feet. He went on his historic winning run, but then he disappeared again just as quickly. The theory is that he wrote an instructional book that forced him to overanalyze his swing. Paralysis by analysis. He lost his form, and without his game, he had no income. He ended up as a club professional, a solid job, but nothing like being a champion. Guldahl's story proves that even the best player in the world in that era was one bad season away from selling cars. There was no margin for error, no financial cushion, just pure performance or poverty. The modern era brought new dangers. As golfers started earning millions, they became targets for financial predators. Henrik Stenson learned this the hard way. In 2009, Stenson was one of the top golfers in the world. He had invested a significant portion of his savings with Allen Stanford's bank. Then the truth came out. Stanford was running a massive Ponzi scheme. Stenson lost at least $8 million. He said it was not all his money, but it was a big part of his savings and investments. The psychological impact was crushing. Stenson's game fell apart. He dropped from the top of the world rankings to outside the top 200. He was angry. He was frustrated. He felt betrayed. The timing made it worse. This happened right when the global financial crisis was destroying markets everywhere. Golfers who thought they had diversified portfolios watched everything collapse at once. Stenson was not alone. Vijay Singh was also entangled with Stanford Financial. Singh wore the company logo on his visor. He took sponsorship money. When the scheme collapsed, lawyers tried to claw back $10 million in payments to Singh's management company. The argument was simple. That money came from defrauded investors. It had to be returned. Singh kept wearing the Stanford visor even after the scandal broke, a move that baffled everyone. But Stenson's story has a different ending than Walker or Guldahl. He rebuilt his game from scratch, partly out of necessity. He needed to recover his losses. In 2013, he won the FedEx Cup and earned a $10 million bonus. In 2016, he won the Open Championship. He clawed his way back. His case shows that in the modern era, the ceiling for earnings is high enough to recover from even an 8-figure loss, but it still required years of work, and for a time he was in serious financial trouble. So what is the lesson here? These 5 golfers represent every way you can lose everything in this sport. John Daly gambled it away in casino sessions that lasted hours. Archie Karras lost $40 million in weeks because the house always wins. Ian Baker Finch lost his confidence, and his income disappeared overnight. David Duval battled injuries and financial stress that fed into each other. Ben Hogan survived poverty early in his career but watched his business fail later. And Cyril Walker went from US Open champion to dying in a jail cell. The common thread is this: golf income is entirely tied to performance. There are no guaranteed contracts, no safety nets, no paychecks when you miss the cut. One bad decision, one injury, one mental block, and the money stops. Completely. The fairway is a fragile place. You are only as rich as your last putt. And for these 5 golfers, the last putt came faster than anyone expected. If this video taught you anything about how quickly fortunes can disappear, hit that like button and let me know in the comments which story shocked you the most. Because these legends prove that in golf, going broke is not just possible, it is one bad break away.